What I'm going to do today is I'm going to run through the homework that was due, reciprocal trig functions, and you guys can see how you did. So make my key here. Number one says cotangent times secant. Cotangent is usually rewritten as cosine over sine times secant is 1 over cos. Okay, so then the cosines cancel, and I get left with 1 over sine. And 1 over sine is cosecant. So that one should have been D. All right, next one, number 2. Secant over cosecant. Well, secant is 1 over cos, and cosecant is 1 over sine. Now, anytime you have fractions inside fractions, we do keep the top fractions, change your fraction bar to a times, and flip over the bottom. Nothing cancels, so I end up with 1 sine over 1 cosine. Now, what is sine over cosine equal to? And that is tangent, which is choice C. So that's what I've got so far. All right, number 3. It's tangent on top of secant. Tangent is sine over cosine. So that's what the top, big fraction bar. And now secant is 1 over cos. And once again, I'm going to do keep the top fraction. Fraction bar becomes a times. Flip over your denominator. Now this time, the coses will cancel, leaving me with just sine. So that was choice A. All right, number 4. Let's take a look at this now. We have sine times cosine. Now sine and cosine can't change, so I'm going to leave them the way they look. Okay. Tangent is sine over cosine. So what I'm going to do here, guys, is keep, change, flip again. The top, we're going to keep the way it looks, sine times cosine. But this fraction bar right here becomes a big time sign, and we flip over the bottom. So it becomes cosine over sine. Now see how this is a fraction? I'm going to make all of this look like a fraction. And I'm hoping you notice that the sines can cancel. And look what we're left over with. Cosine times cosine, which is cosine squared, which is B. Right, number 5. Cotangent times sine. So cotangent is cosine x over sine x times sine. Now sine we can't change, so I'm going to leave it. But since this is a fraction, I'm going to make this look like a fraction. See this fraction bar right here? I'm going to put it there. And secant is 1 over cosine. Now, before I flip anything, check this out. In the numerator up here, those sines can cancel. So I end up with a cos x with a 1 left over on the bottom, all over 1 over cos x, right? And then a fraction over fraction, we're going to do keep, change, flip over the bottom. Hey, what's cosine times cosine again? Same thing as there. That would be cos squared x. All right, that was the first 5. Just a couple more here. Okay. So let's take a look at number 6. Check out what this is. Sine squared plus cos squared. What is sine squared plus cos squared? That's just the number 1. Anytime you see sine squared plus cos squared or cos squared plus sine squared, that's the Pythagorean identity. That becomes a 1. We have a sine x on the bottom, and 1 over sine is equal to cosine x. So that should have been choice A. All right. If cosecant is -5 and tangent's greater than 0, then what quadrant? Okay, so this is an ASTC question. Cosecant. Cosecant is the same thing as 1 over sine, and it's a negative. So that means where is sine negative? So sine is not there, because that means all are positive, or there. Now, out of the leftover 2, tangent has to be greater than 0. So tangent has to be positive. So that means it's got to be in 3. So choice C. Okay. In which quadrant? So as soon as I read that, doing A, S, T, C. All right, in which quadrant do both cosecant and secant functions have negatives? All right, so cosecant, that's 1 over sine, and it's saying it's negative. And secant is 1 over cos, and that's got to be negative. All right, the fact that they're both negative means A is out, because that means all things. So that means sine is negative, so that's out. Cosine is negative, so we only have choice, or quadrant 3, left over. All right, in which quadrant? All right, so once again, A, S, T, C. In which quadrant is tangent negative? So that means A is out. As soon as you see negative, A is always out. And tangent's negative, so that means T is out. And cosecant is positive. Who is cosecant related to? That's 1 over sine. That means sine has to be positive. All right, another quadrant question. So I set up my ASTC. Cosecant, which is 1 over sine, is negative. All right, so sine is negative. That means as soon as you hear negative, A is out. Sine is negative means that's out. Now, out of the leftover 2, I want cosine to be positive. So that means it's got to be in the C quadrant, which is quadrant 4. All right, if sine theta is negative, okay, another quadrant question. So sine is negative. That's out and that's out. Cotangent is positive. Cotangent is related to tangent. So that means I need it to be in 3. And finally, using the identity, sine squared plus cos squared equals 1, find the value of tangent if secant is equal to negative 10 over 7. All right, and it's in quadrant 2. So if secant is this, who is the reciprocal of secant? Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So if I know secant, then cosine's got to be negative 7 over 10. You just flip the fraction over. So now I'm going to plug that into this. So I'm going to do sine squared plus negative 7 over 10 squared equals 1. All right. So that makes, actually I'm going to go to this so I have a little more room. That makes sine squared theta plus square this, I get 49 over 100 equals 1. I'm going to subtract that over. So I get sine squared theta equals, if you put that in your calculator, you're going to get 51 over 100. Right? Now I'm going to take the square root. So I get sine theta equals plus minus. I can't take the square root of 51, but what's the square root of 100? 10. All right, now let's look and see what they want us to find. They want us to find tangent. So tangent, again, is sine over cosine. So the sine is this guy, radical 51 over 10. Cosine they gave us is 7 over 10. I'm not going to worry about the positive and negative yet. We're going to do that in a minute. So we're going to keep change flip this. So I'm going to do radical 51 over 10 times 10 over 7. 10's cancel. So I get radical 51 over 7. Now, I know it's going to be radical 51 over 7. I just need to decide if it's positive or negative, and that's where the quadrant comes in. In the second quadrant, what is tangent? Oops, this is the second quadrant. In the second quadrant, is tangent positive or negative? And I hope you're saying it's negative. So that's the answer to number 12, negative radical 51/7. All right, so that's the homework. Okay, and then I'm going to have another video for you guys that practices how to find